For 41 consecutive days, the United Kingdom has had measurable rainfall. Not off and on, not scattered showers. This is rainfall recorded at multiple weather stations without a single dry day. 3 named storms struck in a single month, with no recovery time between them. More than 100 flood warnings are active right now. And across parts of southern England, something is happening that sandbags cannot stop. The water is no longer falling from the sky. It is rising through the ground, up through chalk aquifers, up through foundations, up through floors. Near Ringwood in the New Forest, a farmer named Ross has pulled 4 vehicles from a single flooded ford in 2 weeks, using his tractor. Sat-nav apps are routing drivers straight into the water because the main roads are closed. 1 mile from that ford, a lorry driver in his 60s lost his life last month. The water was 4 feet deep. There are still no warning signs. That ford is one frame inside a national crisis that is still accelerating. The University of Reading has just recorded its longest unbroken spell of daily rain since records began in 1831. Emergency pumps on the Somerset levels are sitting idle because tidal levels will not let them run. Groundwater beneath Dorset and Wiltshire has hit what the Environment Agency calls record highs, and it is still climbing. And the Met Office says there is no sign of this stopping for at least another 10 days. Here is what happened, and how fast it accelerated. On December 31st, rain began falling at 3 weather stations across southwest England: Northwyke in Devon, Cardenham in Cornwall, Astwood Bank in Worcestershire. It has not stopped at any of them since. By New Year's Day, Catesbridge in County Down recorded 100.8 millimeters in 24 hours, more than doubling its previous January record of 38.2 millimeters, which had stood since 2005. On January 8th, Storm Goretti slammed into the coast. 99-mile-per-hour gusts ripped across St. Mary's Airport on the Scilly Isles, and thousands of properties lost power across southwest England. 15 days later, Storm Ingrid struck. Overnight on January 23rd, Teignmouth Pier collapsed into the sea. Before the rivers could drop, before any catchment could drain, Storm Chandra hit on January 26th. White Barrow in Devon recorded 115.1 millimeters. At 5:30 in the morning on January 27th, the River Otter at Ottery St. Mary surged past a flood record that had stood since December 2000 and overtopped its defenses. The M5 shut down. The A303 shut down. Firefighters pulled people from 25 vehicles. More than 50 schools across Devon closed their doors. By that evening, Somerset Council declared a major incident. That major incident has not been lifted. It is still active right now, 15 days later. But here is the problem that is not making headlines. The timeline did not slow down. Dr. Stephen Burt, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Reading, described the shift as extraordinary, noting that after a cold, dry start to 2026, rain has fallen on every day except one since the 6th of January. In Aberdeen, the Met Office confirmed 2 straight weeks without a single hour of sunshine, the longest stretch on record since 1957. Pull back to the North Atlantic. The jet stream, which normally tracks across the upper latitudes and clips northern Scotland, has shifted south. It is aimed like a hose at southern England. To the northeast, a massive area of high pressure sits anchored over Scandinavia. It is not moving. It is acting as a wall, blocking every weather front from clearing eastward. Instead, they stall over the UK, dump their rain, and are immediately replaced by the next system pushing in from the Atlantic. The Met Office chief forecaster Neil Armstrong explained that this persistent pattern has been driven by a strong south-shifted jet stream, energized by cold air plunges across North America, while the blocking high over northern Europe has prevented fronts from clearing, causing them to stall. Zoom in. The Somerset levels sit in a flat basin between the Quantock Hills and the Mendips, parts of which lie at or below sea level. This land was never naturally dry. It exists as habitable ground only because of engineered drainage channels, sluice gates, and pumping stations. Track northeast to Worcester. The River Severn at the Diglis Gauge peaked at 4.7 meters on February 8th. The top of its normal range is 2.8 meters. Today it still reads 4.25 meters. The racecourse is submerged. The cricket ground is underwater. Properties along Key Street, Diglis Avenue, and Hood Street are surrounded. And this is where it gets worse, because this flood is not one event. It is a collision of three forces that are tightening around each other. The first is the rain itself. England received 50% more rainfall than average in January. Northern Ireland recorded 70% more, its wettest January in 149 years. 26 weather stations across the UK broke their all-time January records. Rain does not stop being dangerous just because it is familiar. When it falls for 40 days onto ground that was already saturated by 3 named storms with no recovery time between them, every new millimeter has nowhere to go except sideways, into roads, into houses, into rivers that are already full. But that was only half the problem. The second force is invisible. Beneath the chalk downs of Dorset and Wiltshire, groundwater has been rising for weeks. Groundwater does not flood like a river. It does not rush through a doorway. It seeps upward through foundations, through concrete, through the earth itself. And unlike river water that peaks and recedes within days, groundwater takes weeks or months to fall. The Environment Agency has confirmed that significant ongoing groundwater flooding impacts remain probable across Dorset and Wiltshire. You cannot pump it. You cannot sandbag it. You wait. And then came the third force, the one that turned a crisis into a trap. In early February, spring tides on the Somerset levels raised river base levels so high that the emergency pumps could not operate. The Environment Agency said that at West Sedgemoor, river levels are still too high to allow us to pump. If we pump too early, this could cause a flood risk to others. For days, the water that needed to drain had nowhere to go. The tides have since eased, but the backlog remains, and the pumps at Currymore still cannot be switched on until river levels drop further. Somerset Council has acknowledged reliability issues with pumps running around the clock. Now widen the lens. 40 consecutive days of rain at 3 stations, 300 properties flooded, 16,200 protected by defenses, 98 areas with flooding expected, and 170 more where it is possible. England has already exceeded its entire average winter rainfall, and more than half of February is still to come. On Diglis Avenue in Worcester, Lynn Smith is watching the Severn rise for the 4th time this winter. She has lived in this house for 29 years. Flooding used to come once every 7 years, she says. Doable. But since 2019, water has entered her home 5 separate years. She and her neighbors formed the Diglis Flood Relief Action Group in 2020 and spent years asking the Environment Agency for a £4 million flood defense wall. No decision yet, and no sign of a decision soon. Meanwhile, in Moorland and Boroughbridge on the Somerset levels, police and council officers are knocking on doors. They are not ordering evacuations. Not yet. But they are asking residents one question. Are you able to stay with friends or family for a day or so? Rest centers are on standby. A community information point is running out of the Angel Cafe in Langport. Here is what the officials say is coming. Andrew Hitchings, flood duty manager at the Environment Agency, warned that with another band of rain on its way, the public needs to remain vigilant, pointing to risks of significant river flooding on the Somerset levels and probable flooding in Worcestershire and Gloucestershire. Senior operational meteorologist Simon Partridge at the Met Office was more direct. There is currently no sign of any prolonged dry weather for the next 7 to 10 days. And the Met Office long-range outlook says Atlantic frontal zones look set to make a return bringing further spells of rain and possibly strong winds. The ground across the Somerset levels is fully saturated. Rivers are described as sensitive to further rainfall. One more heavy band and the door knocking becomes an evacuation order. Even if the rain stopped tomorrow, the groundwater flooding in Dorset and Wiltshire would continue for at least 5 more days, and likely much longer. How long can pumps that are already experiencing reliability issues run at full capacity before something fails? If groundwater keeps rising through the floors of homes across southern England, what is the plan for hundreds of families living above water they cannot see and cannot stop? And if the jet stream stays locked in place, if the blocking high over Scandinavia refuses to break, how many more weeks can communities that were engineered to survive occasional floods endure a flood that simply does not end? 41 days now, and the rain is still falling.